Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all doing well. And today, my friends, we're back with a showdown here between the Tomb Kings and the Beastmen. So it's going to be myself with Ark in the Black facing off against Dog Person here, who's going to be using Morker the Shadow Gave. And I really wanted to try out the Bone Giant. The Bone Giant is a unit that I don't think I've seen in Domination in ages. I mean, in a competitive match, if we're talking like top 8 of tournaments, I don't think I've actually ever seen it being used. Now, I feel like it does have some potential if it can obviously hit its targets. And the accuracy is a little bit kind of up and down, but if it can shoot at things like Bray Shamans, shoot at, Minotaurs, maybe it is going to be a piece that can be decent. Now, as far as the build goes, frontline is going to be Nehekar Warriors. Pretty self-explanatory. These guys will trade really well into pretty much all Beastmen infantry, right? Except Bestigors, obviously, but Bestigors wouldn't be something that you would really see in this matchup. So Nehekar Warriors, bonus versus infantry, unbreakable against Gores, Ungors, Chaff units. They should trade very nicely. So we got 4 of those, backed up by the Boner Giant. So the Bone Giant, like I said, we want to be shooting Minotaurs, we want to be sniping Chariot characters, all that type of stuff. So we'll see if this thing pays for itself. In the back, Ark in the Black, and it is going to be 2 Sepulchral Stalkers. So one of the things that when you're playing Tomb Kings that beats you when you're playing against Khorne is Minotaur spam. So you'll see like quality infantry, like for example, it would be Khorne Warriors with shields, or in this case, Gore Herds backed up by a huge Minotaur rush. So I wanted to have adequate anti-large here with the Sepulchral Stalkers, which can put some shooting into them and can also fight them in melee with halberds if they have to. So that's pretty much my whole build. Now, for my opponent's starting army here, it's going to be Goreherd Spam, backed up by the double Bray Shaman Caster. So Traderkin's actually an incredibly powerful spell. If you guys are a little bit newer to Total War Warhammer, the AoE damage is pretty substantial, and it does also have a slow as well. So backed up by that, we do have a Bray Shaman and a Pit of Shades, which I kind of like the contingency of this. Tomb Kings, like my build, for example, has really good character sniping with Ark and the Black Spirit Leech, plus also the Bone Giant. We have plenty of tools for killing these characters, so I really like the tech of the double Bray Shaman, because on foot, with just one spell, they probably only cost like 700 gold, so it's really not a huge investment, right? It's like the difference of having 1 extra gore on the battlefield. So Butchers of Kalkengard and the Blackhorn's Ravager. So the battle will be underway soon. We could do a little bit of fast forwarding while the posture sets up here. Bone Giant's going to be ripping the first giant shaft right into the target there. Boom! Headshot. And the Bray Shaman of Shadows gets popped pretty good by that Bone Giant shaft. And Ark of the Black coming in with the Spirit Leech as well. Going after the Shadowcaster, which in retrospect, I hadn't realized how truly good the Traderkin is. But if you guys find yourselves in the same situation, I would probably go after the Traderkin caster first. Pit of Shades is a little bit easier to counterplay, whereas Traderkin is just click and point and, damage is guaranteed. But even still, I was very happy with the start, and the fact that the Bone Giant was able to kind of hit home against his Bray Shaman was very, very good. Now, we're going to be going for a straight lane push. On this map, you have a couple options. You could just kind of consolidate all your forces and go for the middle, or you can do a little bit of a split push and try and control, the back objective and the contested number 3 objective. But in this case, considering I have a Bone Giant and several other elite units, I felt like my army couldn't play the wide posturing very well. So there's going to be some light skirmishing here. Giant Bone Giant Shaft coming in, and it does take out 2 Minotaurs, which is incredibly cost effective. These guys obviously have healing, but they don't have resurrection like the undead, so they're not going to be able to come back to life. So taking those models out with the Bone Giant is very strong. And so far, I'm honestly pretty happy with it. He's gotten almost 300 value from 2 shots. Another shot right there does pop that Bray Shaman down, and Ark in the Black is once again going to be moving up and getting another Spirit Leech down on the Bray Shaman, so the value is going okay. Now, we do have the Nehekar Warriors here. Kepra Guard are on their way up as well, figuring that infantry fighting is going to be pretty big, and now we start to see the units that are very good here, which is the Minotaurs with great weapons. They're just super strong. Now, not as good as the Cornate ones in this matchup because they do have less armor. 35 armor makes them more vulnerable against, my Nehekar Warriors, against my Skeleton Spearmen, like all those kind of guys. But generally speaking, still an absolute beater of a unit. And if they do get on top of the Stalkers, even though Stalkers are anti-large themselves, the Minotaurs will typically outtrade them in my experience. Because, 75 weapon strength against, 110, higher HP pool. The Minotaurs, I believe, have better combat stats, 34, 32 against 22 and 30. So obviously the advantage I have is my shooting, right? So I'm going to be pushing up now. Obviously he's got the 2 cap on us. I suppose I could have sent like a Tomb Scorpion and Vanguard down here. You can see the King Nikeshi Scorpion Legion's going to be moving up. And I will be summoning some reinforcements for those guys in a minute. Another Bone Giant Shaft, and it looks like the Bray Shaman potentially going to be running here, but not quite yet. Morker the Shadow Gave, super annoying. He's just an absolute unholy pain to deal with, but like Kepra Guard, I didn't want them fighting Morker. That didn't feel good. So we're just going to be sending Nehekar Warriors. And you can see here we do blast Morker a little bit with the Stalkers, which is pretty funny. Granted, it didn't do much damage. Now, Bray Shaman at 25 leadership, just kind of holding firm here as the kind of harrying phase of the battle continues to unfold. Both of us kind of poking and jockeying for position, calling in the necessary reinforcements. And Tomb Scorpions are always, I would say, a staple for Tomb Kings to have one, at least in your army, because the fact that they have Vanguard deployment gives you really quick access to terror routes. And I was like, okay, maybe the Tomb Scorpion, being an anti-infantry monster, would be able to fight Morker the Shadow Gave effectively and maybe kind of keep him locked down and eventually route and kill him. So we'll have to see. Tomb Scorpion getting in there, and Morker does immediately get hit, so I was very happy about that initial engagement there. Granted, he does have healing, and I don't have an Echo Tech to my army, so I can't really heal the Tomb Scorpion, but I'm hoping that over time we will be able to win the fight. And we also pull Ark in the Black in there, I think, to help out. Yeah, Arkin moves in, and we're going to try and pop him a little bit. Now, on the front, Nagakar Warriors versus Gore Herds, I'm not actually sure who wins that in a straight-up fight. I think if the Tomb Kings have access to the lore of Nagakar and they're going to be spamming the heals, I think you would win it. Here on the side, we do have these Sepulchral Stalkers in position to watch the Minotaurs, and Kepler Guard are moving up. And you can see my 2 Stalkers are just kind of eyeing the prize here of these Minotaurs. But there are some Centaur Throwing Axes coming in, which might be able to get a nice dive. Morker, the Shadow Gave, getting slapped a little bit, while the Bone Giant was trying to shoot the Butchers of Kalkengard, but the pathing was a little bit haggard, and I should have just kept shooting that Bray Shaman caster, but you know, it is what it is. Now, this was a really good play by my opponent using the Chaos Spawn summon. That's really annoying. It's going to do a ton of damage, and the Beastmen spawn do have poison damage, so I can't quite escape that. And we're a little bit blobbed up here. There's going to be a Pit of Shades coming down, but honestly, it didn't really hit us that much. It does hit the one that was pretty much on death's bed already. Thankfully, the Kepler Guard are able to avoid that for the most part, and Ark of the Black did use a Skeleton Summon to dive in the backfield and go after those Centaurs. As far as the value trading goes, it's going okay for us, but unfortunately, these Chaos Spawn are trading very well into my anti-large units, and you can see the Minotaurs with Great Opens the guard mode from the Sepulchral Stalkers actually ripping some big shots. We are going to be getting a Spirit Leech on these guys as well. So honestly, not a bad start. We're up 2,600 to 1,100, but again, Beastmen usually will take some beatings on the way in against, you know, this kind of range play, and we'll see how it kind of unfolds as we go forward. Kepler Guard get absolutely nailed by Traderkin. Traderkin also hitting the Eyes of the Desert. At the back, we do get Centaurs with Throwing Axes on top of my Sepulchral Stalkers. A very, very good Vanguard summon from my opponent there. On the low ground, you know, I wanted to push this. In retrospect, maybe should have just had them go here, but I do have some Tomb Guard coming up. I think I rallied their movement, so they're not going to be there quite yet. But we are continuing to push the middle and getting some decent momentum. Granted, the Sepulchral Stalkers, 1 unit of them, I believe, did die. Kepler Guard, though, trading pretty well, I suppose, although against Morker, the Shadow Gave, not so much. But I suppose they have been able to help kind of keep these Chaos Spawn in check. Across the battlefield, we see the Nehekar Warriors grinding through the Gore Herds, and it seems like they do trade pretty favorably. Bone Giant's on the run at this point, and the Bone Giant's already gotten 600-700 value, not bad, but it is going to be continuing to retreat because in a fight against Minos with Great Opens, it's going to be terrible. So he's going to turn around as soon as he gets the Spear support, and he will start shooting at these Minotaurs, and hopefully that will kind of equalize the battlefield. Now, value's 4,000 to 3,000. Beastmen have a little bit of healing in terms of their Minotaurs, and here we do have Carrion, and our Tomb Guard are now on their way up, so finally I did get them moving. And hopefully we're going to be able to take that bottom objective while continuing to trade evenly here. So Spirit Leech going down, Bone Giant going to be turning about face here, and these darn Chaos Spawn from Warcraft have just been such an unholy pain this entire game. Nice isolation here as well. You know, even 9 Minotaurs just on death's bed are going to be able to probably beat a Tomb Scorpion, which is very, very healthy here. So that's a great isolation for my opponent if he decides to stay. We'll have to see. Maybe they're going to be pulling back to the reinforcements. Time will tell. So double Sepulchral Stalker. I have one of the ones from earlier. The Chaos Spawn able to tie down my Bone Giant, so that bad boy is not going to be able to shoot. And the Pit of Shades caster, I believe, did effectively get sniped by the Bone Giant. So he is not going to be anywhere to be found. Granted, the Bray Shaman is still very much alive. And the Bray Shaman is sitting at not too much value yet. Sepulchral Stalkers with their anti-large attacks, or excuse me, their laser beam attacks. They're freaking laser beams on their heads. You guys remember that from Austin Powers. But they have anti-large and melee, not with their ranged attacks. But even still, it does good damage. Minotaurs with Great Opens are pushed back. I have the Carrion position behind this army. I figured let's get the Tomb Guard in, and then rear charge with the Carrion to try and break the Blackhorn's Ravagers, use these Spears to jump on top of the Butchers of Kalkengard, and pulling in Sepulchral Stalkers, the Eyes of the Desert down here out of Vanguard, to try and really, really bully that point. Granted, you know, summoning a lot down there could maybe lose me this top engagement a little bit. Granted, we have some Spearmen pushing around the side, Sepulchral Stalkers trying to get their laser beams on top of these guys, and the Infantry here are holding well. Now, with Ark in the Black and Lore of Death, your Infantry aren't going to be as much of a raid boss as they would be with Lore of Nagakara. The Lore of Nagakara strategy, which is just going super wide, is a little bit safer, but again, with Arkin, you get a ton of utility via Death Magic and also his Tomb Blade of Arkin, so it's a bit of a trade-off, and I really like that. I like when there's like multiple styles that can both be functional, and there's not just like one way to play a faction. Tomb Kings definitely have that, and after the nerfs they got, they're pretty fun to play. So, Physical Resist going down here. Spirit Leech as well. Minotaurs with Great Opens should end up losing this fight with the Spirit Leech support as well as the Libra Mortis, which is going to be helping them tank those Minotaurs. And across the battlefield, it's not going bad. 7,000 to 5.7 here. On the low ground, this objective is also turning for us as the Eyes of the Desert are able to get some big shots into the Butchers of Kalkengard. And we are going to be dropping the Ushapti summon here. So I really wanted to win this fight and flip this objective, so trying to break the Butchers as well as these Blackhorn's Ravagers here is going to be of the utmost importance. And we should be able to. I mean, there are Centaurs coming in, but with the Ushapti summon, I think that should be be enough to break the back. Granted, the high ground engagement's getting a little bit messy. A lot of my infantry and stalkers are slightly overextended into enemy territory, and the Beastmen do have a bit of a resurgence with centaurs. I can use Nakar horsemen to fight them, but in a head-up fight, if centaurs charge horsemen and they both get the charge off, the centaurs will end up winning that fight in my anecdotal experience. I haven't like tested it, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. The centaurs just have a really nice charge bonus of 46 compared to your 26. The stats are similar enough. Centaurs do have weapon strength at, what is it going to be, 32 against 38, but yeah, the charge bonus I think is what makes the difference. So we'll have an opportunity to kind of see it here. Granted, they're not like perfectly squared up, but the fight is on. So centaurs charge in, we pull in carrion as well. I didn't want to kind of risk the one-on-one fight there. Spirit Leech goes down, and you can see we're starting to lose a little bit of momentum, even though we did get the high ground engagement, or the low ground, I should say, or the western front would probably be the most apt way to describe it. The centaurs here are getting trapped up. We shop these summons doing good. Tomb Guard really able to hold it down. That fight's going well for us, but the Beastmen are resurgent up on the high ground, and even though I'm up in value, it still felt very scary. I mean, Morker is here, the Bray Shaman is here. Bone Giants kind of become dead weight when they run out of ammo. They're like really terrible giants, basically. So, like, even though I have him in terms of value, it felt like it wasn't going to be terribly useful at, like, clearing out all these chaff units. So laser beam boys obstructed. Kind of unfortunate. If these had been infantry here, they'd be able to shoot, but the Nakar warriors are kind of, you know, blocking it up a little bit. And here on the 2v1, we do take down these centaurs here as the Nakar horsemen try and rout them off the battlefield. Are these Tomb Guard? No, those are skeleton warriors. Yeah, momentum is getting a little bit scary here, and the Beastmen capture weight is becoming very substantial as they just swarm with these gore herds. And gore herds are a very good infantry unit. Yes, a little bit squishy, but their combat stats are great. Their damage output is awesome. They have the charge bonus of kind of like, you know, light skirmish cavalry, or light cavalry in general, and yeah, they can really punch through skeletons and chaffs, and now you can see the giant bone giant starting to crumble down. Centaur's able to get great concave fire. Ark in the Black not able to hold this position. He's not like some big Cetra character. And on the other side, you know, I do make the play for the back objective, which was probably a mistake. I sent some Tomb Guard to go chase objective 2 here. I figured maybe a little bit of back pressure would be good, but he's able to rally the Minotaurs as well as some Centaurs, which honestly will probably win this fight. So they get a really, really nice charge here. Beautiful play from my opponent. Big misplay for myself. Should have just kind of hunkered them down to the objective and had them supported by spears, and there would be really no threat of losing this back objective. And now I'm in a little bit of danger where I could end up losing that point. Nakar Warriors trying to sweep the backfield. Sepulchral Stalkers trapped with Morker the Shadow Gave, and we do get some carrion jumping down on top of some of my opponent's range tools in tandem with a very beat up Kepler Guard. Kepler Guard only 700 value, so really not performing super well. We still do have a terror route via the Bone Giant, but the Bone Giant is really, really just not in good shape here. 1100 value is okay. I believe the Bone Giant costs 1600, so it hasn't quite paid for itself yet, but the Horsemen are doing a good job pushing things back. And here the Sepulchral Stalker is going to be hustling back to the objective, while the Tomb Guard, unfortunately, are isolated and most likely going to be killed by these two units. So that was a pretty colossal blunder. Even though it seemed like a really small thing, it could lead to me potentially losing this bottom objective if I am not able to reinforce it. But I do have the home field advantage here. You know, I got Nakar Warriors coming in, which will have good capture weight, and hopefully can get some pushes back. Carrion getting a rear charge here, and Ark of the Black. This is one of the reasons he's so good, right? He does get that really nice skeleton summon, which is going to be buffering the Bone Giant and providing a little bit of support here. The curse does go down from Arkin, which does do some nice AoE damage. That is when he gets a little bit low, and most Tomb King's characters will have some sort of a curse, whether it's like debuffing armor or different things like that. And it's pretty good. So value's even now, guys. We have a dead even game. So yeah, I mean, I don't really have I don't think I have any healing outside of the Kepler Guard here, and the Beastmen have the Butchers of Kalkin Guard, so we're pretty much equal in that regard. Nakar Horsemen here are going to be charged by a lot of Centaurs, but, you know, Ark of the Black continuing to fight here, and we are going to be fighting tooth and nail to get this objective back. Morker the Shadow Gave is going to make it very, very tough, and it looks like there's going to be a Traderkin going down. Beautiful Traderkin. It hits my Warriors, hits my Lord. It's a really, really good spell. Nakar Warriors over here, still trying to fight these Centaurs off, or the Horsemen, excuse me, and their leadership is the one variable that really does give them a decent fighting chance against those units, and the Nakar Warriors will, like I said, and like you saw earlier, they traded very well with the Gores initially, but this is where the Bone Giant, I think, is kind of haggard, right? It just doesn't really do a whole lot, and my opponent's kind of farming it for the old value. Now, are we going to be able to hold this point? Sepulchral Stalkers get the support from Carrion. So I summoned some Carrion from Vanguard, and I figured with the rear charge on the Gore Herds, they would be able to win, and it looks like that's going to be the case as these guys are breaking. But now we have King Nikesh's Scorpion Legion, which do have 42 melee defense, but they're about to get charged by Gore Herds, and the 29 charge bonus probably will be able to chop them down. You can see damage not going super hard. That high melee defense in tandem with the poison is really helping them out quite a bit, but I'm going to need to get some reinforcements here because when the Butchers get in there, it's going to be very, very messy, and you can see I do summon some more Skeleton Spheres because I think all my infantry had been summoned out on the battlefield at this point, so it was starting to get very, very precarious. So this objective's kind of flipping back and forth, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very close game, but the problem is the Beastmen are up on points pretty heavily. They're at 1,300, And I'm getting into a situation where I feel as if I'm going to win this fight eventually. I feel like down here I'm going to win this fight eventually. But am I going to be able to get a triple cap is the question. And, you know, Tomb Kings aren't the swiftest faction in the world. We do have some decent light cavalry in the Nehakara and Skeleton Horsemen, but they're not the swiftest lads. So it's going to be very tricky for me to potentially get a triple cap. But we do get the capture weight here. More Beastmen units are on their way, and in the backfield we do have more Skeleton Spearmen, and I'm saving up, I think for a Tomb Scorpion here was my game plan to get like a big terror piece here. Yeah, I do have the Boner Giant, but I noticed the Boner Giant was kind of on his way out and wasn't really terribly impactful. A lot of these Gore Herds are going to be breaking now, which is nice, and here comes the Tomb Scorpion. So hoping to be able to kind of break this objective back, and you can see now that Centaurs and these Gores are running, the objective will be flipping back to myself. Down here, this objective is in the clutches of the Tomb Kings, but the Butchers of Kalkengard, you know, if I'd had those Tomb Guard here, maybe I can hold this, but it is going to be a very, very tough push, guys. Only 100 points, as you can see. Skeleton Spearmen moving up. This objective might be salvaged by these guys. They're getting really, really close, but at the end of the day, I don't have enough time. I needed to get my objective back sooner on the counter push and hold that bottom one. So, well played. It was a really fun game. I think if you just cut the Bone Giant and bring something better, you know, it becomes a much more efficient build. The Bone Giant was cool. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing it being experimented with, but against a really top tier opponent like Dog Person here, currently top 16 on the leaderboard, it's you can see where things kind of start to fall off a little bit. But aside from that, Stalkers were pretty awesome. Warriors are just really, really good. Ark in the Black is always great as well. A lot of cool stuff you can do. I do think Arkan is still great here. I think you can go with Cetra as well. If you want to get Cetra on the Sphinx, he can definitely bully Morker and take out those characters and give you a big terror source. You just have to watch out for the Minotaurs with great weapons. But yeah, I mean, you could cut Arkan and you could cut the Bone Giant, you get Cetra on his Sphinx and a couple more supporting Spear units, and you have a really good build right there, right? So there's a lot of cool ways to play the Tomb Kings, and yeah, and again, now that they've been nerfed and their leadership is more in check and they actually crumble a little bit more, I wouldn't say quite properly yet. Undead are still very strong, but yeah, it feels great. It's really awesome to see Beastmen do well. I know Dog Person specializes in Beastmen. He's really, really good at them. So always an honor and pleasure to play against him. So GG, well played. We'll see you guys next time looking at the value here of the Beastmen, who did really well. Morker just kind of grinded it out. And the Bray Shaman Caster got 1800. Minotaurs did good. Centaurs are throwing. It was really, really like an even, like the whole Beastman army just kind of like spread the payload of value. Good game. Well played. See you next time. Take care, guys.